Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 6th, 2017.
2:05 here on the great WRKO. Okay, before I get to the common man who's patiently holding, and I really appreciate it, I just got to say this. So, we're off air. I'm prepping for my next segment, and I see the text machine, and I see thank you, like a response on our end. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Who's texting who? And then I look, and I see Brittany with her little head with the white headphones on, the red head, bobbing and weaving back there. And I'm thinking, wow, look at Brittany go. I mean, she's probably on the computer, surfing the net, latest breaking stories, statistics, whatever. No. The fans are texting in saying, great point, Brittany. Oh, I so agree with you, Brittany. Great job, Brittany. And she's texting back, thanks, no, thank you.
What's wrong with that?
I'm like, she's texting. I think she's out there working, getting stories, and instead she's texting the fans during the, it's incredible.
What's wrong with that? Gotta keep them happy, Jeff. Are you kidding me? They love when you answer them through the text machine.
It's incredible. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go back to the common man. Now, the common man was making an absolutely brilliant point, which is everyday laborers, workers, nurses, teachers, whatever. When you go to the mall, when you're at school, whatever, with kids, sporting events, you now have to be prepared for the worst, meaning i.e. either terrorism or mass shootings. And I think what you were trying to say, common man, is that the common man, the common woman, they need to start getting armed, and they need to understand how to respond in a deadly shooting situation, correct?
Yes, sir. This is what we are doing. We are common people, not necessarily even recreational gun shooters. We are arming ourselves and training to be prepared for an active shooter situation, because we, the common man and woman, have become the prey species. We have become the soft target. And to all within the sound of our voices, Jeff, be warned. The soft targets, the sheep, the easy mark, we are quietly and resolutely reacting to what's happened in the last 10 years and preparing. When you attempt one of these crimes, you are going to be met with resistance greater and greater, hour by hour, day by day, month by month. The common man and woman is arming themselves, something to keep in mind, because as we look at statistics where we have greater gun control, which you pointed out with France, we have more horrific victim numbers.
Oh, you're completely right. And common man, just look at Chicago.
Of course.
I mean, Chicago's Exhibit A. And common man, listen, you've got a lot of common sense. God bless you. Thank you for that call, common man.
Keep fighting, sir, because there are liberal forces that fight against what you are and who you stand for. I stand with you. The common man and woman stands with you. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, thank you. And I stand with you. Seriously, to me, if there's one thing I really pride myself on, I am a populist. I am the voice, as best as I can be, of the common person, the common man, the common woman, not just in Massachusetts and New England, but across America. To me, I want this show to be the voice of Middle America. And, I just got to say this. I touched on it when that story broke about Fenway Park, that Stephen Paddock was scouting Fenway. And I mentioned how my wife, Dr. Grace, is now afraid. Doesn't like to go to concerts anymore, doesn't like to do outdoor events. But I'm with you, common man. Look, it's a part of reality. You can't ignore it. You can't run from it. Now, I'm going to go to outdoor events. I just am. If I could get tickets, say, to the Red Sox when they're going to play the Astros at Fenway, I'm going to go. And if I got 2 tickets, I'd bring my Ashton with me. But you're right. We have to start thinking more like citizens and understand that there are threats out there, whether it be at the mall, whether it be at school, whether it be at the stadium, at Gillette, whatever it is, TD Garden, wherever it is that you go. And let me just say this. Every law enforcement official that I've spoken to, veteran, whatever, let me tell you what they all tell me. The most common thing when you hear, boom, 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 whatever, da, 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 all of these shootings, the victims or the witnesses that were there say it sounded like fireworks. So at first, we looked around, we thought, well, it's got to be fireworks. It's never fireworks. It's never fireworks. The only time you hear fireworks is on July 4th. So if you think it's fireworks, I'm telling you it's not fireworks. So if you're hearing sounds like that, either go down or run or whatever. But don't say to yourself, oh, I think it's fireworks, because it's not. I'm telling you it's not. And all of us have a built-in sixth sense, a survival instinct. Trust that survival instinct. If you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, you have a sixth sense. I don't know. I don't want to go to this movie theater. I don't know. I don't want to go to this concert. I don't know. I just trust your instincts because usually they're right. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bruce in Essex. Go ahead, Bruce.
Here's a sentence that National Public Radio refused to broadcast this week, which is, every time a psychopath goes to a defense-free location and kills people, the reaction of some is that we need more defense-free locations.
Bruce, I think you nailed it. Gun-free zones. You're completely right. Now, I got to tell you, the one thing, if you've noticed, they will never shoot up a police station. They will, Fort Hood, but even then, when you look at the Fort Hood shooter, he struck his fellow warriors. He was a psychiatrist, an Islamist, but they were unarmed. They were getting ready to deploy to, I believe it was to Iraq. They were getting ready to deploy to Iraq. So he struck them when they were defenseless. There's a reason for that. If they know that citizens are armed, and they know, as the common man put it, hey, you hit an American shopping mall, they're going to shoot your head off right away. Hey, buddy, you're at the Mandalay. Oh, you better be careful. Because the guy next to you, the guy below you, the guy above you, he's packing. You see, what was amazing about the whole Mandalay Bay thing is they sent in a security guard, right, to come in and see if the shooting came from that room. The security guard himself was unarmed. And, of course, Stephen Paddock had several cameras set up, one in the peephole, one in a food service cart. He knew he was coming. Boom, 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 boom. Apparently unleashed 200 rounds through the door and injured the security guard. So I'm thinking, well, why is the security guard even unarmed? If you want one guy to be armed doing security for you at the Mandalay Bay, it's the security guard. So, to me, the answer to these mass shootings is not to take away guns or these kind of gimmicks. It's to me to say, no, we have to be ready. The citizens have to be ready because when the cops are minutes away, your life hangs by a few seconds. There's something else that I want to throw on the table, okay? As I like to put it, a log on the fire. This is just my own personal experience. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I know that many of my friends, family members that I've spoken to, when I've broached this topic, they agree. They've had the same experience. So this is anecdotal, but I want to share it with you. I've now been in the workplace for over 20 years. Let me tell you what I find most striking about being in the workplace. I don't care if it's a university, a newspaper, a think tank, a radio station, it doesn't matter. Is how many mentally ill people I run into at work. And what I mean by mentally ill, I'm not talking schizophrenia, bipolar. I'm not talking depression. I have family members. They suffer from real depression. You can tell it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. They need treatment, and thank the Lord for those antidepressants because it's not their fault. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is irrational behavior. I'm talking about people that when I meet with them or talk with them or have to interact with them, I'm like, what is wrong with them? They are constantly angry. They're constantly aggrieved. They think their actions have no consequences. They mistreat everybody around them. They're completely and utterly narcissistic. And they do things that are so obviously not only in their self-interest, but their colleagues' self-interest or the company's self-interest. In other words, I can't tell you how many discussions I had where I go, I think the person is mentally ill. Like, it's just the elevator just doesn't go to the top. Now, the reason why I mention this is because if you look at mass shootings in America, it's really the last 25 to 30 years that they have exploded. So again, if it was the guns, you would have seen it in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s, because we always had guns. Something has changed. And I was speaking about this with Brittany this morning. And I said, Brittany, is it me? And I start listing people, don't want to get into names, but I'm listing this person, this person, this person. I go, is that person not mentally ill? Yeah. And I'm like, don't you think it's a bit odd that you've got so many people, like, just, it's not all up there. And her response, and I think she's dead on, drugs. She goes, I'm telling you, what's starting to happen is, it began with the hippies in the 60s, is that you now have teenagers, even young kids, doing marijuana. It's now prevalent. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They're all doing dope. They're all doing marijuana. The damage on the brain, when you have a young developing brain, and you're mixing that with constantly getting stoned and high, how can that not lead to brain damage? When you've got now people taking ecstasy, popping opiates, mind-altering drugs, which is what we've been doing in this country now for the last 20, 30 years, it's going to lead to not only more mental illness, but I'm not kidding, mentally damaged people. It's just a fact. And yet, this drug epidemic that has been crippling this country now for the last 25 to 30 years, you honestly don't think has anything related to all of these mass shootings? And I don't just mean like the Sandy Hooks or Las Vegas or Columbine. I'm not talking about the big media-driven sensational shootings. Look at Southside Chicago. Boom, 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 boom. People massacring each other. Night after night, day after day, day after day. Yes, a lot of it is the drug trade. A lot of it are drug dealers. But a lot of these people are stoned. Or they're junkies, or they're addicts, or, in other words, they're brain damaged. And it's just, boom, shoot them. I don't care. I just don't care. I'm stoned. I don't care. My mind has been altered, irreparably damaged from long sustained drug use. How come, as an example, we don't even discuss this? We don't ask ourselves, okay, it's true. We do have more mass shootings than most other countries in the world. But Switzerland, everybody's armed, as an example. So how come they're not killing each other in Switzerland? Well, what's different about us? What are we doing that's different in America compared to the other countries? They don't have Hollywood. They don't have 70% of the American public, American adults, on prescription drugs. They don't have this kind of crippling drug epidemic. They just don't. So they don't have the social pathologies that we have. Well, maybe it's the social pathologies that are driving this out-of-control gun violence. They won't even talk about it. You know why? Because it doesn't suit the liberal agenda. And if it doesn't suit the liberal agenda, forget it. It's not even worth discussing. 617-266-6868. Steve in New Hampshire, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, Jeff. Yeah, I totally agree with the whole thing with Hollywood and just the liberal agenda. I mean, if they really cared about, gun violence and stuff, then I think that they would shift their target from the American people over to their buddies in Hollywood, for producing the type of films that, can just really alter people's minds. And, Hollywood just really been given, a power to just influence people's minds. And, you can just see how much that has changed, over the years of the type of films that are available now, and just how that can have an effect on people.
Well, Steve, please don't drop him, Brittany. It's violence porn. What Hollywood is now peddling, I think, it's violence porn. And I just want to give an example, and I want to ask you something, Steve.
Okay.
My 7-year-old boy, good boy, great boy, I love Ashton. But just a couple days ago, he was like mimicking something, and he's pretending he's got a knife, and he's pretending that he's sticking it in Ava's neck. And I'm like, what? Where did you learn that? Well, you know where he learned it from? He was watching Transformers. And, we rented it for him. I'm looking at Transformers, and I'm like, they've got these swords, and they're chopping people's heads off. And I'm like, okay, they're robots. But I'm like, this is nonstop. It's 2.5 hours of violence. And so I want to ask you this. When advertisers spend billions of dollars to advertise on TV, why are they spending all that money, Steve?
They're spending...
In other words, what is it because they think that advertising influences consumers?
Yes.
So my question to you is this, and I think this is what you're going with this, and I think you're dead on. If advertisers are willing to spend billions of dollars because they know that what people see on TV will influence their behavior, isn't Hollywood, in a sense, advertising violence?
Yes, they are.
And so why do you think the political class will never hold Hollywood accountable or at least morally shame them or call them out?
It is because they're pushing their agenda. And it interferes with that agenda that they're trying to push for gun control.
Steve, do you have children?
Yes, I do.
Do you let them watch Hollywood movies or do you control what they watch?
Yes, we control what they watch. Any kind of violent movies, we would not let them see it. We wait until they go to bed.
Oh, and then let's say you and your wife, then you'll watch a movie.
Right.
Steve, you're a very good parent. Thank you for that call. Great call. You know what? I got to start. I'm serious. After that incident, I mean, there was no object, but still he was acting it out. And I'm like, where did he get that? Didn't get it from me. Didn't get it from his mother. And then I realized when I asked him, it's TV. Transformers, Hollywood movie. You gotta watch them now like a hawk. Let's go to Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Lou.
How you doing, Jeff?
I'm
I have
good.
A couple real interesting points I think you might want to comment on. Number one, we all know that if it was up to the Democratic Party, they would confiscate all the guns. They're one Supreme Court justice away from actually doing that. So that's why we have to really be vigilant, because if we have a 5-4 in the Supreme Court, they can say that guns only apply to the Second Amendment only applies to muskets or whatever, and it can be totally regulated. So we know what we're doing and what we're against. They're also against the First Amendment. They're also against due process and getting rid of the Constitution altogether. We know their game plan, and they will use a tragedy like this just to do that. One thing they don't want to do, and nobody's ever brought this up, is that a lot of the killing, like you just said earlier, goes on in Baltimore, Chicago, inner cities. Gangs kill, about 2,000 people a year?
Yes.
Thousands since Obama's been president of the United States. They don't want to go in and get illegal guns from the criminals. Why? Because then they'd have to arrest a lot of minorities. They'd have to arrest a lot of gang members, MS-13s, and probably a lot of dreamers to boot. And the second point I want to make is that you remember that the San Bernardino killing with Tashfeen and Farouk?
Yes.
Okay. It was very similar to this in that they had a cache not only of guns, but of explosives. And they also, remember the person, the witness who said they were visited by people. Now, we haven't heard of this guy ever being visited or contacting anybody, but it's very odd that he's got all those guns just like they did and the explosives just like they did, and seemed to be wanting to plan on carrying out a number of violent acts that may have involved guns or may have involved explosives or anything else. And we've got to be aware that these types of cells or whatever exist in this country. And we have to prepare all of our venues as if the president were coming to town. And we have to treat all public venues, sports, entertainment as if the Secret Service are watching them. They have people with binoculars and snipers there too. We just have to do that.
Lou, thank you for that call. Well, look, I think one thing now, there's no question it's going to change, is that when you do have let's say a major outdoor venue, you're going to need several snipers positioned nearby going forward. It's just now it's going to happen no matter what, whether you like it or not, to look at, let's say, high-rise buildings or whatever, let's say around Fenway, or as an example, or Gillette. Well, Gillette, there's a couple of hotels overlooking Gillette. It's not that bad, but still, you're just going to have it now. So what's happening is it's slowly changing our way of life. Whether we like it or not, it is. And to me, what I'm saying is, if we don't want to start losing our civil liberties, we have to start asking the tough questions that the media refuses to ask. And I think, I'm sorry, but there is something in our culture that has become very sick. Look, I talked about the Transformers, okay? Generally, though, I shield my kids from that. I discourage them from watching TV or watching movies. And my point is just this. Say what you want about the 50s, the 60s, whatever. Popular culture, for the most part, was wholesome. Now, when you're raising your kids today, the culture is not your friend. It's your enemy. And that's a big problem. Let's take it to Evan Heidrich in the newsroom. Take it away, Evan. 2:34 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends. One of the aspects now of our popular culture that I think is clearly getting poisoned by politics and is no longer a good role model for young people, I think now increasingly, is professional football. Take Colin Kaepernick. This is a story I wanted to report earlier this week. I didn't, obviously, because of the Las Vegas massacre. But it has now come out, and I want you to think about this. This is the man that all of these players in the NFL who are kneeling are mimicking. They are kneeling in solidarity with him. I'm not talking about him wearing socks with pigs, saying the police officers are the equivalent of pigs. I'm not talking anymore about him wearing Castro or Che Guevara t-shirts. What I'm talking about now is him having donated $25,000 to the Assata Shakur Foundation. What is the Assata Shakur Foundation? It is a foundation literally devoted to honoring Assata Shakur. Jeff, who the hell is Assata Shakur? She was a terrorist, a member of the Black Liberation Army in the 60s and early 70s, who was convicted of the murder of a New Jersey police officer in 1973. She is a convicted cop killer. When she was then sent to prison, her fellow terrorists, members of the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, they then stormed the prison that she was in. They smuggled in guns. They literally helped her escape, and then she fled to Cuba, where she is living to this day, preaching Marxism and the revolutionary overthrow of capitalism. You've got a guy now. We're not talking taking a knee anymore. We're not talking anymore disrespecting the anthem or the flag or the veterans or those who fought, died, and bled for that flag in our country. We're now talking about a guy who's writing checks, serious checks, to a foundation that commemorates, honors, and glamorizes a convicted cop killer. He's not playing in my NFL. And you've got NFL players who are now saying they're standing in solidarity with him? after what this guy has just done, it is beyond disgusting. It is absolutely beyond disgusting. And what is even worse, it is now the sheer hypocrisy of some of these players. And one of them is Cam Newton. If you remember, he, on Sunday, if you watched the game, I didn't, but I read reports about it, he carved up the Patriots defense, plays for the Carolina Panthers, and actually helped his team defeat the Patriots. I believe it was 33-30. Every time he scored a touchdown, he raised his fist, Black Power style. So I want you to think about this. Here is a professional quarterback who raises his Black Power fist on behalf of black supremacists, on behalf of cop killers, and in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick. No problem. No problem. The Boston Globe is defending him. You've got the sports station across the street. I want to mention even their names. They're defending him, and that's his right and freedom of speech and self-expression and blah, 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 blah. So that, no problem. You want to celebrate the murder of cops? Good for you. You want to stand in support of black supremacy? No problem. You want to back a guy who supports a Asira Shakur, a convicted cop killer? No problem. But you make a sexist joke about a female reporter, and suddenly, buddy, you're finished. So listen now to Cam Newton at a press conference, I believe it was on Wednesday, whereby he was taking questions, I guess, about the upcoming game, and a female sports reporter for the Charlotte Observer, Jordan Rodrigue, I think is how you pronounce her last name, where she asked a very good sports IQ question about physicality, how players run their routes, and he makes a joke that she would actually know the proper football terms. Roll it, Brittany.
Yeah, I know you take a lot of pride in seeing your receivers play well. Devin Funchess has seemed to really embrace the physicality of his routes and getting those extra yards. Does that give you a little bit of an enjoyment to see him kind of truck sticking people out there?
It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. It's funny. But fun is coming along, man. We're gonna. This is a big game for him because of him being from Detroit.
He made a joke. I think it was honestly a bad joke, if you want my honest opinion, because the implication is that why would a female sports reporter, know the kind of sports lingo and sports terminology like some of the other male sports reporters? So he basically made a joke. And you can say it was a sexist joke. Immediately, Charlotte Observer demanded an apology. Fans, tremendous blowback. Dannon, the yogurt company, now they're pulling their sponsorship and their ads with him. Advertisers don't want to touch him. His own coach had to publicly denounce him. Suddenly now, we're not talking about freedom of speech. Oh, hey guys, what happened to his excuse me, hello, what happened to his freedom of speech? I'm sorry, where's the Boston Globe now? Hey, where is Felger and Maz? I'm sorry, whoa, how come the guys at the Sports Hub, the jock sniffers, how come they're not all of a sudden, how come they're not defending his freedom of speech? How come it's not his right to free expression, the First Amendment? Everybody died for his First Amendment, apparently. Oh, so when he's pumping the black power fist in the air, no problem. When he's celebrating cop killers, no problem. When he's protesting the national anthem and the American flag and spitting on all those who fought and died and bled for that flag, no freaking problem. But you make a stupid crack, a sexist crack about a sports reporter, and all of a sudden, shut up, apologize, which of course he did. The guy's now he's groveling. See, and that's another thing. Look at the hypocrisy of this guy. Why is it? I'm sorry. Hold on. You insult a sports reporter, which you shouldn't have done, but he did. How come you're not defending your First Amendment rights? Because, boy, when you're pumping that black power fist and you're taking a knee, as Cam Newton has done, oh, then it's your right. Then that PC. Cam, don't you cross that line, Cam. Now, look at the hypocrite that he is. What is he allegedly protesting? Let's take it to its highest level. That there is inequality between, even though he's making, I think, $20 million a year, that's what he's allegedly fed. The sexist pig that they're only good for one thing, and that's lying on their back. Let's be honest about it. How many of them have sexually assaulted women? Their attitudes towards women? And yet they stand here and act like on their moral high horse that they're going to lecture us about their love for equality and inclusion and compassion and respect for diversity. They're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. And so now my question to every single liberal and moonbat in the city of Boston and around America is this. Why aren't you defending Cam Newton's rights to freedom of speech? How come none of you are saying he shouldn't apologize? He has nothing to apologize about. It's what everybody died for. It's what the troops died for. No. Let's be clear. If he spits on the flag, you're okay with it. If he spits on the veterans and on America, you're okay with it. You don't care about his freedom of speech. All you care about is enforcing political correctness. And everybody now knows it. You're all a bunch of hypocrites. 617-266-6868 is the number. Paul in Dorchester, you're up next. Go ahead, Paul.
Jeff, if you're not going to say it, Jeff, I'm going to say it. These meatheads, these guys who go to college and are college athletes and play football or some kind of sport, they don't have time to take classes, Jeff. They have proxy students taking their courses for them and taking their exams. They're taking classes like Swahili and all kinds of crap that they don't even use. These guys they're 8 hours on the field. I saw a UNC investigation CNN put on a few years ago where for 18 years, all these UNC players, they went into classes, Jeff. So I care less about what Cam Newton or Colin Kaepernick think about any social injustice because they have no say. They can't even balance a freaking budget. They go bankrupt every year, and every town that they go to, they have some kind of prostitute waiting for them who ends up with their money, in these reality shows. So I don't care what they think. They're a bunch of meatheads.
Paul, you're dead on. I mean, really, Paul, you hit this one out of the park. 617-266-6868. And let me throw even just one more log on the fire. So now it's come out, right? The Monday night game was, I think, between Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington Redskins. Several of the Chiefs players, I believe, took a knee. So even though Las Vegas had taken place, and many of those police officers had shown unbelievable heroism and valor, some of them sacrificing their own lives, even off-duty police officers, to save others. Doesn't matter. No. They're living under racial oppression here. It's apartheid America, okay? So they had to go and take a knee. Fine. Okay, they want to do it? Go ahead, do it. But then they were caught on video and on audio. A player from the Redskins and a player from the Chiefs, when they blew a play, like one defensive back got beaten for a touchdown, allegedly, the fans are calling him a bum or whatever. He starts calling him the mother F word. I can't say it. The mother blank word. Another one, the Washington Redskins player, who's now being taken off the field, I guess, for whatever reason. He's halftime or the end of the game, I forget when it was, starts giving the middle finger and telling the fans to blank off. In other words, you now have NFL players. Forget the protesting now. Or forget that. Now they're openly insulting and attacking, going after their fans. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, hold on. You're supposed to be professionals. You know you're going to get taunted by the fans when you're at a stadium. That's just the nature of the game. That's how it is. You're supposed to block it out, focus on the game. But now you're openly ripping into and insulting and going right after the very people who pay your salaries by buying the tickets. Guys, I mean, really, at this point, no, really, it's like, how do you bankrupt a business 101? Look at the NFL under Roger Goodell. Now they're telling the fans to their face, blank you. 2:54 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, there is now some breaking news about the shooting, the massacre in Las Vegas. And now I think it's becoming almost untenable for the mainstream media to continue with their narrative that this was a lone shooter or a lone wolf. Let's put it this way, that he only acted alone. I think now I almost buried. Here is now the absolute latest. Investigators are now admitting that it clearly appears that there was somebody in the room with Stephen Paddock. This is beyond now the receipt for the room service and eyewitness accounts. They now have found that there was a charger that was in the room, a cell phone charger, that did not match any of the cell phones that belonged to Stephen Paddock. So why does he have a charger that he's not going to use for any of his phones? One of the most obvious explanations, it's smacking you almost in the face, is that it was for another cell phone owned by somebody else. The second thing now that is now also investigators say is now baffling them and leading them to the conclusion that he must have had help or an accomplice is that garage records now show that during the period when Paddock's car left the hotel garage, because he wasn't at the Mandalay the whole time in the lead up to the attack, one of his key cards was used to get into his room. Well, hold on now. If he acted alone, as the media is trying to sell us, and he did this all by himself, and nobody else was involved, no accomplice, it's only him and only him. Well, how could he be in his car, leaving the garage, wherever he was going to, and at the same time be on the 32nd floor and entering his hotel room? I mean, again, unless this guy's Superman, unless this guy can be in two places at once, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And so what is to me now becoming obviously clear is that there clearly was somebody in the room with him. There's no question about that. And furthermore, that he clearly had some kind of an accomplice. The extent of that help, what they did, was it a shooter, not a shooter, that we can't determine by the evidence. But what we can determine now, I think it's pretty obvious, is there was somebody there with him. And the room, by the way, and law enforcement has not denied this, nobody has, even the FBI, no one has denied this, was loaded with weapons. Thousands of rounds of ammo, 23 guns, handguns, rifles, everything. So if you're in that room, you know what he's planning to do. So clearly, there was a second person involved. Now, what to me remains unanswered, and to me this is such a mother lead, they must be following this, but the media won't mention it. This is what I find stunning. The so-called Hispanic woman, she was described as an Hispanic. We don't know if she was Hispanic, but she was described as Hispanic, 5'5", brown eyes, brown hair. The woman who ran into the concert and was yelling out 45 minutes before the massacre began, "You're all going to blank and die. You're all going to blank and die today." Who so frightened and jolted the people around her that security eventually moved in and cleared her out. Was she in the hotel room? Was she an accomplice? Did she have a role or have a part in this? Or was this one of the greatest coincidences in human history? And why will the media not even mention her, even though there are multiple witnesses? My friends, here's my prediction. I could be wrong. I think by the time I come back on the air on Monday, we're going to have a press conference over the weekend that I think will clearly come out and say Stephen Paddock did not act alone. And if they're not going to tell us that he did not act alone, that he did, in other words, that he did not have an accomplice, then we're being lied to. He did act with somebody. This was a deliberate, premeditated attack. And if you find who that second person is, you're going to break this case wide open. I'm out of time. I need a fourth hour. I got to go. To everybody, have a wonderful weekend. God bless you.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 3 o'clock.